much more. Using a deck oven helps our pizzas stay extra crisp. So if you haven't tried a slice lately, what are you waiting for? From our 50-slice King Carnivore to veggie pizzas and even pickle pizzas, Pizza King has the pie to match your taste. Pizza King's, 1046 Morel Avenue in Connellsville. Call 724-626-8343 or visit pizzakingswithaz.com.
This is The Great Outdoors with Jason White, exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, The Great Outdoors with Jason White.
Good morning and welcome back to The Great Outdoors on WMBS. I'm Matt Leeper, filling in once again for our good friend Jason White, and I'm honored again to sit in this seat for another week on behalf of our sponsors, the Mariana Outdoorsman Association, Wild Acre Farms, and also don't forget, visit Washington County, PA. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. This is a show where Pennsylvania's outdoors come alive through stories, strategy, and the people that make the region tick. Last week, we took kind of a deep dive into something that I don't think most people think about, but I think they should. That was the PA Chapter 105 permit process and the reforms that we're trying to advocate for. It's kind of behind-the-scenes stuff that keeps our rivers, wetlands, and woodlands protected, all while making room for the progress and the infrastructure that we need. And believe me, that was just the tip of the iceberg on that conversation. I'm sure Jason will keep bringing you parts of that as he intertwines a lot of the other things that he talks about on the show. This week, we're staying on a similar track, but we're turning our lens a bit. So instead of focusing only on the regulations, we're going to talk about the restoration process, not in the kind of vague feel-good sense that a lot of people do, but the real hands in the dirt work of reclaiming land, restoring the balance, and the reimagining of property the way that it can be. To help us do that, I've got a guest who lives in both worlds. He couldn't join us today in the studio, but he's calling in. He works, basically, he's one hand on one side. He's a seasoned professional in the energy and construction sector, working on the front lines of, the environmental protection piece of it, and then the land reclamation through his company, Absolute Reclamation Services. That's the hard hat and the machine running and problem solving side. But then there's also the other side, a little bit more vision, a little more soul. He is also the founder of Mountainscape Designs LLC, where he and his team basically handcraft large rural properties into retreats, functional homesteads, multi-generational legacy properties, if you will. If you've ever looked over a piece of land and thought, what could that become? Adam's definitely the guy to call and talk to about that process. So today we're going to dig into both halves of that story. We're going to see what it takes to restore land after it's been disturbed and what it means to design land with the intention of making it great before it ever gets touched. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about working with nature instead of against it and how to overturn acreage into an asset and what it looks like to build something that lasts longer than a lifetime. So whether you're driving through Greene County right now or sipping coffee in Fayette or sitting on the porch in Washington, staring at your own back 40, stick with us and we'll see what he has to say. So Adam, are you there?
I'm here.
Well, I appreciate you joining us on the radio program today. I know you and I have had lots of discussions about some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. But today, what I really want to do is kind of get a feel for your background, see kind of where you're coming from, and you can let people understand why you're the gentleman to talk to about this stuff. So if it's good with you, let's start with ARS, or Absolute Reclamation Services. So what exactly does reclamation mean in the context of the construction and energy work that you guys do? And how does it go beyond just cleaning up after a job on the site?
Well, let's go over two questions there. So first of all, my background is growing up, spending my summers working on a farm, a rural piece of property that we've always had a great vision for. The problem is that vision often takes a lifetime to achieve. So I spent a lot of time on the tractor and on the back of a tractor, pulling chains and cleaning up property. That took me to working in the restoration and reclamation field, because the office life really wasn't for me. I got into working on some of these projects in seeding, stormwater management, doing a lot of different aspects of cleaning up industrial and commercial projects. So what that really means is a lot of people hear reclamation, they think mine reclamation or stream reclamation for something that's been damaged, and they're correct. That is what it is. We're capable of doing all that at ARS, but a lot of it is just responsibly handling a lot of these sites, making sure the stormwater is managed, keeping the erosion and sediment out of our streams and waterways by protecting the environment, keeping everything on site, and then getting that natural growth to take over so that we have sediment ponds and different items that will help retain everything on site and then let nature take it back.
I know whenever you deal with people and you talk to a lot of people, they hear the word reclamation and they just think of like grass seed and straw and those kind of things to kind of help get grass growth back on the property. But what are some of the more technical and the behind the scenes stuff that your team takes that people don't realize that you guys have to get in place before you can put the seed and the straw down?
Yeah, that goes a lot with the channels. It goes a lot with the sediment ponds. But more so than that, it's not just putting seed and straw on the ground. You have to know what your soil types are. You have to know your indigenous species of that seed, what's supposed to be in there, what's supposed to grow in that area, what's optimal for growth in that area. And then getting your pH right, getting your fertilizations right to make sure that when you put topsoil back down on these sites, you have the right material with the right conditions to grow the right grass and to make it work right. And a lot of people don't really know the depth of that. So it kind of gets overlooked. Oh, it's just seed and straw, but there's really a lot to it if you're going to do it right.
Yeah, and that's for sure. And I'm not going to ask you to get into any kind of the special sauce, but could you explain, the difference? I guess not really the difference, but could you explain that there are so many different types of like ground cover, different things that they would put in a seed mix, so that whenever you see somebody out there actually putting seed down, whether that be conventional seeding, hydro seeding, any of those things, there's a lot of time and effort and research that goes into what goes into that seed mix to meet the requirements for each one of those different kind of land types. The universities play a big part in that, determining the best seed mixes for certain areas and what goes into, be it clover or different types of grass seed that'll work best in that area. You also have to look at what that area is going to encounter for the next however many years. If it's going to be high traffic industrial, if you got steep slopes that you can't mow, you have to look at like a crown veg or something that's going to hold low and grow strong and stabilize that slope. So there are quite a few different types. It all depends on really the application. And if you ever have any questions, Penn State's got a good program for that as well. Yeah, they really do. I know just walking through Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever over the weekends, you see that whole aisle of grass seed, and that's a basic contractor mix. And I think that's what people think that a lot of this work is done with, not realizing all the science and all the information that goes into that on the backside. So I know that you've been in the industry for a long time. I mean, your company has been very active. I know that a lot of the work that you guys have done and completed, either in Pennsylvania and Ohio and West Virginia. Could you take a minute and describe one of the projects that kind of really showcased what proper reclamation looks like, and maybe one where the transformation surprised even you whenever it was completed?
I think what really surprises me the most is not the areas where we come in and do what we're supposed to do. It's when we get called in for I can't make grass grow here. There's a coal seam or there's various different issues that are causing grass not to grow. And that's usually the times where I get surprised. We have a lot of different mulching applications and specialized equipment to come in and put material down that will stay and stabilize. And, we have to get these sites closed out, permits closed out, which means they have to be full growth. It has to be done right in order to get that closed out. So a lot of these times, one in particular, we had a bad coal seam across the top of a cut slope, steep slope, and we stabilized it with mulch. We got it seeded. We got the right fertilizer in there, and we did all the math. We sent it away to get all the material away to get analyzed to determine what was needed as far as fertilizer and whatnot, and to have come back a month or two later and to see that grow is kind of shocking, because it's one of those areas where you just didn't expect anything to happen, even though the math was the math. And for that to grow was really, really surprising, and the customer was super happy.
Yeah, the amount of fertilizer that went into that project, I can only imagine. My one of my former companies, we did a project where we actually went into one of the old power plants that had been decommissioned, and they had a 40-acre coal yard where they basically came in year after year and just dumped the coal that ended up feeding the power plant. And after it was decommissioned, they wanted us to come in and they wanted us to revegetate that area. And let's just say the amount of fertilizer that we had to put to get the pH level of that ground back was amazing, even to me. And I'm sure you guys kind of got into a similar situation there. But I know that you're very, very adept at doing that kind of work. But the thing that really kind of gets your excitement level up just from the conversations that we've had is your other venture, which is Mountainscape Designs. And that's, you're doing reclamation almost for recreation, or to create a property into a recreation or a usable property. Either something that needs rebuilt or turning raw land into a dream property, I guess, is kind of what you guys do. So if you don't mind, can we talk Mountainscape Design a little bit? You go from restoring construction land and untouched, but what inspired you to make the leap between those two worlds, even though you kind of straddle both of them, working for both sides?
Yeah, it was really a demand and a passion of mine. Obviously, as I said before, I grew up on a nice rural piece of property in West Virginia, working on getting that land the way we would like it for our objectives. But it really was always a passion of mine, and I just couldn't figure out how to do it professionally where it made sense. So like I said before, it was a demand issue. We had a lot of calls coming in post-COVID. People were buying property, looking to get out of the city and get their families out somewhere where they can be away from the hustle and bustle. And they're really, people were doing more hiking, more getting outdoors more, and they were really embracing it. So we started getting a lot of calls for building some of these properties. Can you clear some of these trees, and can you seed? I'd like a really nice seed in this area. A lot of people like the different Kentucky bluegrass blends, and we were getting some real specialized projects, and I just fell in love with it. And, the idea of showing up to work and walking a 300-acre property for a couple of days was right in my wheelhouse. That was my cup of tea for Thor. And as this kept happening, I just decided we're going to fill a need here, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. And after I started doing it, I started to get the idea of what people wanted, and really started turning that into a vision that they couldn't really expect. They didn't know what was possible, and having the experience in reclamation and all the different things we do with our civil company, it just made sense putting the two together.
Well, I know after your first couple consultations on some projects, you and I had a really good phone call. And I would like to say that we talked for a couple hours, but let's just say you talked for a couple hours because you were just so excited about what was going on. And I was happy for you because like it kind of touched something, kind of woke you back up a little bit. And I think it's, so one of the things that I always look at is whenever we go in and we're doing an industrial project, everything is laid out for us. We've got blueprints, we've got schematics, we've got E&S plans, we've got all those things. So could you talk a little bit about what the difference is in like kind of mindset between restoring the industrial land and what you really enjoy doing, where you're the one going in and setting the game plan for enhancing the private land or dealing with the owners to get, to understand what it is they're trying to accomplish, and letting you open up your design brain to go in and give them exactly what they want, so that whenever you walk away, they're smiling and you've had a great time.
Yeah. And that's really it. I mean, these sites that we have worked on were, they're designed for one purpose, whether it be a well pad or a pipeline or a Walmart. It's the design for that purpose, for that look, for that architect, for that engineer. But what was really awesome is, getting out, talking to people, seeing what they want, whether it's a whitetail habitat, they want the mecca of hunting places. Or, if they want a place for their kids, that are in the lake all summer, they want to get them out in the wilderness and experience more. Just figuring out the basics of what it is and who it's for. And the switching of that is you get to look at a piece of property, what nature's given you, what the design aspects are already there, and not only not change it, but just work with it to create what the owner is looking for, and to meet their needs, while kind of bonding with nature, and getting you out to experience it in the gifts that we've been given.
Well, that's awesome. It seems like you're designing this more as a generational property. So whenever you're going in to deal with the landowner, you're looking at not just what they want, but what the possible uses is for their lineage. How do you balance like durability, sustainability, and the beauty of the area into these projects, all while kind of trying to keep that generational impact in mind?
Well, it kind of goes back to the last thing we were talking about, having everything designed on these sites are designed for getting that permit closed out, moving on to the next project. These are projects that are going to last, and they're going to be around for a long time. You're not leasing this as a hunting property. You own it. It's yours. It's going to be your kids and your kids' kids. So you want to be, you have the time, you have the gift of it, of the length, growing the trees you want, getting the right things on that property that'll last, and then doing it in a way that it's still nature. You're not going to have to constantly maintain every single aspect of this. Yeah, there are certain things that you have to do to try and keep the wild from taking over. But, when you can plant 100 trees that are either fruit or nut bearing, that are going to take care of the wildlife that you want for generations. And, even if you want to grow trees to support, timbering and getting a return that way, you have the time, because it is generational.
Well, with that, this just isn't about big parcels of land. Like you could do this on like 5, 10, 50, up to hundreds of acres. Do the same principles like kind of apply with each one of those, or it's a case by case basis?
Well, yeah. Smaller properties are a little more condensed, but you can it depends on what the customer, the landowner, is looking for. an example would be with whitetail habitat. A lot of people think that you have to have large amounts of acres to really build a whitetail population. But if you manage it properly, get the right bedding, manage where the trails go, get the right water sources, you can hold a population of whitetail without having to fence in your whole property. If they don't have to go anywhere, they're going to be good where they're at. So things like that you can do on a smaller property, but it just depends on what you want. I mean, if you want a pistol shooting range, or if you like to shoot clays, I mean, you could fit that into smaller footprints as long as you do it safely and you have the right, backdrop.
Okay. Well, I mean, as you're starting to give us a couple examples, I guess give us a little bit of a taste of, what other things that you guys are capable of building or putting on on a property. And then I guess, if you don't mind, could you share with us some of the cooler projects that Mountainscape Designs have gotten to put in, and some of the landowners, like what some of their requests were?
Yeah. There's everything's different, so everything's cool to me, because you're dealing with what the environment in the property is giving you. We had one that had in West Virginia, had a beautiful stream in an old farmhouse. The owner was remodeling the farmhouse, and we just kind of, I guess, modified the terrain a little bit so it flowed nice right into the river, and also adding a nice big garden, so that everything would be sustainable. I mean, you really don't have to leave much if you have two of those ingredients. Another one would be the shooting ranges are really fun. I mean, one customer had kids. He wanted to get out and teach them how to shoot and teach them how to, ride UTVs and shoot clays. And so we put a clay shooting range on one section of the property, 7 miles of trails. And how you work those trails, you could really expand it without a lot of room by having different layers of trails kind of interact with each other. So you're only running back on one section, but then you're hitting another trail. And then the pistol shooting range was really cool. Just happened to be the right backdrop and the right part of the property. And it kind of benched itself. So there's a lot of these aspects you could find on a piece of land that you wouldn't really see unless you kind of take everything in and look what fits. So it really, once you have what the landowner is looking for, you can really find a place and make it really naturally installed, rather than going in and demoing everything and starting from scratch.
Well, I'm sure with your experience that it's taken you a while to kind of hone that eye to be able to see what other people don't. Walking the pipeline projects and the reclamation projects and the different things, you're able to see land features and opportunities where a lot of people see a cluster of trees. Besides shooting ranges and let's say the UTV trails, I know that you guys have done like horse riding paths for different people. You guys have built pavilions, different things along those lines. It doesn't always have to be like the extreme, the extreme, I guess, like the UTVs and like those kind of things to build it out. You can literally make walking paths and different things like that, a lookout, if you've got a really good setup on your property for that, put benches, different things like that in. I mean, are there other things like that I'm kind of missing?
No, I mean, you nailed it. It really is determined by what the owner is looking for. We have done those. We actually did a really cool walking trail for a retirement home. Planted a lot of nice trees and revamped it and graded the trails so they were good for exercise. You're not advanced hiking. And then different aspects of it, a lot of the streams that run through it. will eventually cut in when you have large storms. So we do some reinforcement on the stream banks, stuff like that, to try and make everything last longer and still without making it look horrible. There's a fine line there, and I think we walk it pretty well.
There's no doubt. I've seen some of the pictures of the work that you guys have done. But like you said before, that a lot about this work is giving the people what they want, giving them a place to make memories. Like I'm sure you get some really good initial feedback because everybody's excited about what they see. But what kind of feedback do you get from your clients after they've had a year or two on their redesigned land? And then do they ask you, like, as they start to get acclimated to it, then they want to bring you guys back because they've thought up 2 or 3 extra things that they want to do?
Oh, for sure. And it never ceases to amaze me what they want next or what they come up with. We had one project, and the guy bought one of the big 6-wheel off-road trucks. He's like, I need this wide enough for a 6-wheel off-road truck, and I'm trying to put a whole baseball team in the back of it and drive around the property. I'm like, okay, we can do that.
That sounds like a photo op.
Yeah, absolutely. They only get more involved, and the more time you spend on your land, the more you see, the more you envision, and the more exciting it gets. And then I've actually had a lot of customers expand their properties when properties that are next to it come available, and connecting those properties, putting in more trails, getting in different properties offer different aspects. So. Instead of building a barndominium, they decided they were going to go over and just buy the house next door and redo that. So that worked out great. Some are just, they want this part of the property for hunting away from the house, and they want everything over here as far as the adventure stuff goes. And they want something next to their house that's a little more relaxing and tranquil, just some walking trails, some nice fire pits, things like that. Where their family can get together and relax and have that peace and tranquility. So yeah, the longer somebody's on a property, there usually becomes more and more they want to do. When we started our property, it was mainly just recreational hunting and just getting out of the city. And now that my parents live there, it became, this pond needs expanded. Well, now the front yard looks like a golf course. We're going to need to clean up all of these trees and the dead trees, so there's no more branches to clean up. It never ends.
Your dad loves his mower.
I think more than me.
Yes, I would agree with that. Mark is all over the mowing of the golf course that is his front yard. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
But let's get a little honest here. Like, what is one thing that property owners consistently underestimate whenever it comes to turning like a wilderness area or timbered land into usable space for the recreation side?
I think the biggest thing that is underestimated is the amount of time it takes and the amount of time that people have available. That seems to be a reoccurring theme. These properties, to get to the end of what you're looking for, to get the results that you want, is something that a lot of people think that they'll do it themselves, no problem. I've got time. Well, families take time, and then you've got to prioritize it. It's like when you're going to rebuild a classic car. 80% of them are still in the garage with missing parts.
Wow,
it's all a great plan. It's a great plan until you start doing the work. And I mean, just keeping up with the maintenance of the property is a full-time job. And then you get into the different things that you want. It could end up being one of those things that, someday never comes. You just keep waiting on someday. So, that was one of the big things that I noticed, and that's kind of why Mountainscape is such a great asset to landowners, is because they can they can get the baby without the labor pains.
Nice. Now, you did touch on something that I wasn't even really kind of thinking about. Um, yeah, I was always looking at the creation of this great property, but let's go back and look at something you just said there, the maintenance aspect of it. If you've got that large of a piece of property, usually those people are active in other portions of their life. They don't really have the time to maintain, and we all know what kind of we all know what it takes to maintain a large property. Well, you and I do.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, could you talk through a little bit about the unforeseen maintenance and those kind of things, and how that also plays in with you guys? Do you guys do the maintenance on these properties as well?
Yeah, we do, and it's an integral part of the process because it can be a full-time job, or it can be something you do twice a year with a crew. Some people have large families, and majority of the time, only one or two end up putting in the time to do the work because their families, kids, baseball, swimming, whatever it may be. You don't get the time, and it's amazing how fast nature will take back over.
Oh, that's
If
for
you have
sure.
a field, it won't last long if you don't keep the edges back and keep the trails clear. Those trails will disappear within 2 years.
Yeah,
So
and
it's,
tree growth within 4.
yeah, that's just, those are really hard to reclaim once you've lost them. I mean, you put in the time, you put in the work, you put in the money, however you do it, to get that where it needs to be. And even just vines. I mean, if you get a set of vines on a property that starts taking growth and taking root, if you don't nip that in the bud quick, that could take over a whole hillside within 10 years, and then your trees are falling down, and then you've lost that side of your property, and you can't enjoy it.
Yeah, and we all know that 10 years seems like a long time, but you've been back up in Pennsylvania for 10 years. You blinked, and here we are. So it sounds like a long time. Oh my God, a decade. I'll take care of that. And then the next thing you know, here you are, and we're that much further down the road here. But so let's say if somebody listening today owns their own plot of land that they haven't touched in years, or something that they just bought a parcel of property that nobody has touched in a long, long time. What's the first question? What's the first couple things they should be asking themselves before they call someone like you to come look at their property to move to the next step?
Well, I mean, the first thing you got to look at is what your passion is, what you want it for, what you want what your kids enjoy, and have that conversation with either yourself or whoever is going to be inheriting the property, and make sure everybody's on the same page. Figure out what you want, figure out what they want, and that way, when you call, you have an idea of your vision of what you want this land to be and what you want to use it for. And you give me that, and I could probably show you something you didn't expect.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting as we talk about this. Like, I look back and I think about all the work that a couple of our sponsors have done. The MOA. You've been to their property. You've been to Wild Acres Farm. All that a few years ago was just an idea in a guy's mind, and here we are these years later with a lot of hard work and a lot of volunteerism and a lot of people really kind of putting their nose to the grindstone, and they've got a beautiful property. They've taken hundreds of acres and they've turned it into a beautiful, I'll use the term playland for, sportsmen. They've got 1,000-yard range. That's like the only one in this section of the state. They've got 10 mile. They've got all the work that they've done with the trout habitat and the stocking and all the things that they've done down there. But then not just that, the redoing of the barn, the pheasant habitat that they have up there, the farmhouse across that they've turned into, for lack of a better term, a clubhouse. You've been on those. You've been on that property. You've seen it. That's what you generally do with the properties that you come in contact with. So I guess another question that I've got is, in your work with both Absolute or Mountainscape, what are some of the things that still surprise you even after all these years that either people do or people haven't thought about or kind of gum up the works?
What still catches me in the fields is probably the view. Watching that sunset over that field, or just the cleanup, the simple maintenance work when you're done, the pride you can take in it, and looking at it, and it's really touching. To see what Mother Nature provides us, right? And then just a little bit of cleanup and a little bit of respect to her, and you can make something that's painting worthy. And it's always amazing to see it when it comes to bloom.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, she provides the canvas, but you guys definitely do a lot of the painting to reclaim the front part of that canvas to make it into the picture that it is. Here's a question that I've been dying to ask, because I know that we've talked about this, but let's take some limits off this. There's no budget limits. There's no anything that would stop you. If you could build your own dream property from scratch, no budget, none of those kind of things, what would you include on your own property? Like, where would it be? And I'm going to have to, for context, you don't get to pick the Clarksburg property that you guys already have. It can be close, but you don't get to pick the dream property you already got. But what would you have on it? Where would it be? What would you do, to kind of build up a property like that from scratch?
Well, I think water features are a key part of that. It's difficult to find the right landscape for that. And I think if you could have a spring-fed pond over a field, I think that's what I vision would be the best. It's something we had to work hard on. I know I don't get to use my own, but yeah, that would definitely be it. Having a place to go shooting, having a place where you can, and real quick, the growing up on a piece of property and spending so much time on one, I found a place on that property that no one really went to, no one really knew about. It had a huge, huge tree down, and it was my solitude. I would just go out there, hide from work for a while, and just stare at the sky for a while. And nature would come around. You got deer walking by, all that type of stuff. But it's just the tranquility of it. That and having a nice water feature would be the ideal property.
I gotcha. All those times on projects, whenever I thought you were daydreaming, you were just having a flashback. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
But no, the property that you guys do have down in Clarksburg, in the Clarksburg area, is fantastic. I know you guys have put a ton of work into that property. But as I look at the clock over my shoulder, we got about 4 minutes left to go, and I just wanted to say, Adam, I really do appreciate you coming on here. It's good to get some of these conversations out that you and I have had personally, and just if you wouldn't mind. Give us a quick rundown, kind of plug for yourself here with ARS. Give everybody an idea what ARS is and how to get in touch with you there. And then if you could tell people what your thought is that Mountainscape Designs is and how you plan on building that going forward, and then also giving them the ability to get in contact with you there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, ARS, they handle everything from clearing, ENS install, civil site work, and restoration. So, I mean, that's pretty most aspects of a project. You can get in touch with me at adam@ars-llc.net or call the office and ask for me. As far as Mountainscape Design goes, I would love to hear about people's visions and stories, and even just to have questions about their own property. They can reach me at adam@mountainscapedesigns.com.
Okay. Well, Adam, I appreciate your time, my man, and I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, what you do is very similar to what MOA has done in the past on the Mountainscape Design side, and I know that you and Jason have had multiple conversations You given him some
Oh,
advice
yeah.
on some things that we could potentially do better in the future as we move forward as an organization. But I just wanted to say thank you for your thank you for coming on here, and I will. I'm sure I'll be talking to you here soon. As far
Yeah.
as far as the show goes, I just wanted to kind of make a couple points to follow up with what Adam was talking about, and that there's a misconception that construction means destruction, and but whenever it's done right, it can actually heal the land. So the jobs that those guys do, whether it's a pipeline or property damage, or you're thinking even beyond projects like that, you know, they're designed to make the land usable. Whenever you replant, whenever you revegetate, whenever you do things like that, it actually allows the soil to garner more water. It allows it to take it in with the root depth, with the root structure that those grasses and those things take on. That the work that they're doing goes just beyond the beautification period. It goes beyond just making the property look nice. It really has a function. As we get out of like urban properties and we start getting into more rural, the ability to do that and be able to create places for water to be to hold and those kind of things is really important. We've gotten a lot more urban, or the rural has gone away from that. So I just wanted to make that distinction. And like I said, I just want to say thank you one more time to anybody that's listening, that took in the conversation that we just had. And I'd also like to thank our sponsors one more time: the Mariana Outdoorsman Association, Wild Acres Farms, both of those in the Mariana area. And then also keep in mind to visit Washington County, Pennsylvania. They have a lot of interesting events coming up, so go check out their website to find out what it is that they're doing.
And you're listening to WMBS Uniontown at 11 o'clock.
CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Steve Kathan. President Trump suggests U.S. officials will talk sometime next